vi ser allerede bare I Norge at vi har behov for å kunne holde oss I et litt bredere språk enn vårt norske språk. So, thanks guys. Thanks for joining us with Din today. We're a non-profit organization driving the knowledge about your digital identity and how we can improve on that. We have been existing for about 2 years. We are currently sponsored by Ecard to drive our nonprofit work. We have a couple of collaboration organizations such as DIF, which is an international standards committee on this identity. And we are slowly increasing our members group. We are a nonprofit trying to initiate research initiatives, drive newsletters, and other news initiatives to kind of spread the world of this, of where digital identity is going. As Norway and Nordics is in a very, very comfortable position, but when the whole world is starting to shift to another gear because they see that they need better digital identity solutions, we also need to step up and continue that journey. So today we got a visit from Geir Magne Vangen. He works at Sikt. I met Geir in one of the meetings where Digitalization's Directorate held to inform us about the new EIDAS revision, which basically talks about that everyone in the EU is going to have their own wallet. And what this wallet means, nobody completely knows. We're trying to find that direction. EU is providing a lot of stuff that we will touch upon, I guess. And in that meeting, we kind of got together and talked about how Sikt or the earlier company Unit have been working with the EU on this, and also how they currently do share their data with the Vitnemålsportalen. So I'll just leave the word over to you, Geir, and close my screen, and you can introduce yourself and start the presentation.
Yes, thank you, Snorre. Just start sharing my presentation. Share, yes. Yeah, hopefully you see it now.
1 second, there you go. It's on live.
Perfect. Yeah, I won't say very much about digital identity today, but more about our international cooperation. But some of the presentation will involve this digital wallet Snorre just talked about. Let's see if I can. Okay. Yes. Yeah. So, Snorre, thank you for inviting me to this forum. I hope we can have some discussions afterwards. Also look forward to learn what you might expect from us in Sikt in our position as a service provider in the area of student and study information. So the scope for this presentation is activities we have internationally, especially with the EU Commission within the Division of Education and Administrative Services in Sikt. So I don't cover all the Sikt's activities like research and infrastructure, but the area of education. So first, why do we cooperate internationally? Why do we cooperate with the EU? The area we are working inside is handling student and study information. and that is very a niche area. We are the only group of people in Norway doing this, and we need to go outside the borders to find somebody else working in the same area. And also, EU is a strong policymaker within education, and in the digitalization of administration of this area, we have been in front actually in the development, both in Norway and the Nordic countries for many years, and we want to have some influence on further development. And of course, we are also a very small country, and we need to go outside also to learn how to move forward. And there are also some money in EU to set up projects and make things happen. So Sikt is a new agency, Norwegian agency for shared services in education and research. So we are a body under the Ministry of Education in Norway, and we are developing and deliver services for education and research, and to make life easier for both students and employees. And our aim is to ensure that everyone working inside education and research have access to secure, stable, and comprehensive services. So we are providing a number of digital services for the sector. And this is both higher education and other, also for upper secondary schools further on. So we are about 317 employees in Sikt. Location is main office in Trondheim, offices in Oslo and Bergen, and I'm sitting in Oslo. Yeah, so our role is to share common services for all education institutions and support sharing and reuse of data. Open up the data we are taking care of for all citizens of Norway, actually. Yes. So my name is Geir Vangen. I have been working with administrative systems for universities and colleges for about 30 years. Started at the University of Oslo on local systems, actually on mainframe computers back then. And later on been involved in national projects like national admission and student information. Today I'm the product owner for the architect team at Sikt's Division for Education and Administration. And this is a support team for this division. And I've also been coordinating our memberships in a number of EU projects, and also been working on international standardization. So Sikt, the Division of Education and Administrative Systems, are delivering systems for the sector. This is within student information. We have a national systems called the Fellesstudentsystem. Admission, systems for national admission for all higher education. The Diploma Portal, I will come back to that, the Vitmålsportalen. We are providing digital exam systems, learning management systems, and a lot more, about 30 different systems within this area. Yes. So just to let you have an idea on the background for the environment and cooperation we are working within. This is in the connection to what I believe is the intention of your cooperation within DIN. I may of course be wrong, but to open up the data that our citizens can get access to their own data and handle their own data. So back in the 90s, when this all started, we had the starting up with the cooperation between higher education institutions. And that was on the area of national admission and student information systems. Before that, this was done locally at all the different institutions. And we got the first self-service systems early in the 90s. Actually, we developed registration terminals for students on campus so they could register themselves for exams, etc., pay study fees, and so on. And the first web application was built in 99, both for student web, for self-administration, and for web application for admission, Samordna-opptak. And after 2000, the idea was to let the students and applicants maintain data about themselves, open up the data, and the students could do the update of this themselves. And also standardizing the common and largest student administrative processes. Actually, when we started early 90s, the systems should not standardize the process. It should support the existing processes. But that really turned around to get more into standardization across universities and colleges. And actually, in year 2000, we got the first learning management systems in Norway for higher education. And we also got then integration to the student information system. So all the students could be handled in the learning management system. More self-service functions, individual study plans, to apply for recognition, apply for police certificate, etc., etc. More self-service functions for applicants. In 2008, you couldn't apply on paper schemas anymore. And in 2017, you couldn't send in paper anymore. This should be uploaded digitally. And at the same time, we got systems for digital exam. And that really helps us through the pandemic the last couple of years. The infrastructure was already in place for all higher education. We got the Diploma Portal in 2017. I come back to that. And most institutions stopped producing transcripts of records on paper in 2019. Last year, we got the full digitalized diplomas for the first time, and that will also end the produce of own diplomas on paper. So our main business is, of course, to help Norwegian education institutions to reach their goals and to focus on having a good relation and communication with these organizations. We have, however, some international groups we try to maintain our relations to, and we also connect these to the work we do in Norway and also try to invite our Norwegian partners into this cooperation. So to start with, in the Nordic countries, we have had informal cooperations in the mid-90s. We established a group called the Nordforum back in 2006. And today, all Nordic countries are part of this, and also Estonia. And the latest year, also the Netherlands have been part of the Nordic countries in this context. And this led to something called MREX network in 2014. And that is actually, it started as an EU project and is now the architecture that Vitnemålsportalen is built upon, and many other Vitnemålsportal or Diploma Portals in Europe. At the European area, we started in 2007 something called ROM, Student Systems and Standard Group. This is something that doesn't exist anymore, but this have led to a lot of other initiatives when it did exist. So this was cooperation in the era of student information systems, and this was done between European countries and US and Canada. And this led to initiatives like Groningen Declaration, I'll come back to that as well, Erasmus Paper, which is the infrastructure in Europe to do student exchange, and also this MREX infrastructure that our diploma registry is part of. And this was also very active in SEN standardization. SEN is the European standardization body. And this led to two European standards. One was for metadata for learning opportunities, and one was for European learning mobility. And this was data models for results and information about learning opportunities like courses and qualifications, diplomas. And these have led to new formats that is today used in networks like MREX and Erasmus without paper. Of course, this international cooperation takes a lot of time to accomplish the tasks. So I guess we used almost 10 years before we started this work to this was actually in systems in production. And this RS3G is now part of something called EUNIS. So this is a special interesting group today there. So it's still in live. If we look globally, student information is, as I said, a very niche area. But globally, there is one network called Groningen Declaration Network. And this is networking in practice. And this make people from all over the world meet, get to know each other, and actually things start happening in these meetings. And this a lot of initiative has become reality because of this network. It was established back in 2012, and the goal is to make digital student data portability happen. So citizens worldwide should be able to consult and share their authentic education data with whomever they want, whenever they want, wherever they want. And this is also the idea behind the assistance like the Diploma Portal, Vitmos Portal. There are annual meetings here across the world. In 2025, this will be held in Oslo. So we will take care of that meeting. So in 2024, it will be in Singapore. So. Yes, so a very short introduction to the previous and one ongoing project that we have been involved in the digitalization of student information. So Erasmus Plus is the European program within education. The most known here is, of course, the student mobility, and some of you maybe have been on Erasmus Plus mobility. MREX has been a project within Erasmus. MREX is about getting access to your own resource from education and be able to enable you to share this data with whoever you want to share it with. That was a policy project, but it actually ended up in a architecture that is in use today, and it's living today and used every day. Then we have Erasmus without paper, also a policy project, and this is about digitalizing the exchange process for students. And this is architecture, definition of a number of APIs that universities should provide to exchange data between the University of Europe. And a lot of this is happening right now. This is being implemented across Europe.
Quick question, Gert. Do you
Yes.
want questions along the way so I can just stop you, or do you
Yes,
want to wait
please.
until then?
Sure.
Yeah. So how long has this Erasmus without paper been ongoing? Did you say?
Erasmus without paper started in 2016.
Yeah.
So there has been 2 such projects over 4 years. So the definition of this architecture has been developed, and proof of concepts has been developed, and the last couple of years this has been put into production.
Okay.
But we have about 2,000 university systems across Europe. So this takes a lot of time to implement. But there are some commercial systems as well. So.
Because this is an API that's going to live on each university, or is it you guys put it in the Vitnemålsportalen, or where does it concretely live?
Well, this is done either locally at the university or at each nation. So in Norway, this is being done by Sikt.
Yeah.
So we do it for all higher education in Norway. But in some countries, they don't have this kind of cooperation. They have to do this locally.
Okay. Cool.
Yes. We are involved in a couple of projects called the DigiNet and DigiRec. These are enigmatic projects. Enigmatic is the organizations doing recognition of foreign studies. So in Norway, it's NOKUT that is doing this job. And this process is about digitalization of the process of doing recognition. And I'm currently sitting in the steering committee of these projects. Yes. Another program that we are in the end of now is Connecting Europe Facility. And that is the program for digitalization, the Commission's program for digitalization. The first project we have been involved in there, it was the implementation of EIDAS in EID in Norway. And we did that together with Digdir, Digitaliseringsdirektoratet, or back then DIFI, and the Skattedirektoratet, which have the population registry of Norway. And that ended up in implementation of EIDAS EID in the Norwegian ID portal, and also in what we call FADER, which is the Federation of Identity for Education in Norway. So, and then we could implement EIDAS EID in all our administrative systems for education, and that has been done. So you can come with your Estonian identity and apply for Norwegian study place today. So. Yes, ESMO was about integrate education sector service providers to the EIDAS network to add education-specific attributes to EIDAS. And that was actually a very interesting project. It ended up with architecture that was very complex, and it really failed. So it showed that the existing infrastructure for EIDAS did not support these kind of systems. We actually made a pilot that worked, but it was not very user-friendly, and it was very complex to implement. So that was a project we did together with Spain, and Greece. Today we are part of a project called EDSI, European Digital Student Service Infrastructure, and that is about putting together this European infrastructure for serving students, and especially students on mobility. Erasmus Plus paper is part of this, but also a number of different components. Sikt's task in this is taking care of privacy and security in this infrastructure. So we are doing security testing and privacy testing, GDPR. And we are also in charge of the work with data models in this infrastructure.
Yeah, we have a hand raised up by Jørund, so you can let him know.
Short question regarding the use of EIDAS IDs to apply for a student to become a student in Norway. Do you know anything about how much this? I mean, one thing is the technical ability to do it, but do you know anything about to what degree this is actually being done? How many applicants are there per year that use their electronic ID instead of sending in by paper?
Well, I can't actually answer to that. You are not allowed to send this in on paper, so you have to log in. The alternative to use your national ID here is actually to build your own identity based on your email address. But yeah, I can't give you the number. But it's quite easy to use, and so but I can't answer that. But of course, there are not that many countries part of this, so the implementation of this has been very slow. And I guess that is why also the Commission now is coming up with the EIDAS 2.0 that I will come back to in a while. So.
Yeah, I have a question. Like, based on that fail, or do you want a follow-up question, Jørund? Sorry.
No, it's okay. I'm fine with the answer.
I have a question on the ESMO. Is the ESMO also a potential driver for seeing the lack of the infrastructure, or what do you think?
No, I don't think so. So the result of the project has, of course, been given to the Commission, and so hopefully they have. Yeah, this is one of many things that bring in the findings for the existing infrastructure. So. But the project doesn't exist anymore. So.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, other activities on EU level, European Blockchain Partnership. The first couple of years since this was introduced, Sikt was handling the Norwegian part of EBP before Digdir take over the command of this. They did it last year. So. And we also have the European Blockchain Service Infrastructure, which we are following up on the Diploma case. So the Diploma case has been quite active in this infrastructure and still is. There is something called the European Student Ecard Digital Service Infrastructure. That is the infrastructure for student mobility or students in general, and actually have nothing to do with student card. That's most a policy issue. And this is something all providers of student information systems and mobility systems have to look into and be part of in a way. So. And then we have the Europass digital credentials. Europass is a service given by DG employment in the Commission, and it actually handles the employer's side of education to describe information about learning opportunities, CVs, and here is digital credentials. So a couple of years ago, Europa digitalized all their documents, and part of that was also building an infrastructure for digital credentials, including a digital wallet. And we have been part of this process in the format area. What formats do we need to use in these wallets? And the format we are using in our diploma registry is about 100% of that is also now part of Europa's digital credentials. But these are two different formats. Yeah. So cooperation on standards is of course important. Many of the standards we are using for our systems comes from these standardization organizations. We have some relation to these standardizations organization you see here for building integrations and opening data. I guess for us, IMS is the most important standardizations organization because they are working in the education area, and especially they started in the area of learning management systems. And we are also a member of IMS to have some influence on this standardization. IEEE is, for example, working on standards for integrated learning record, putting together people from a number of groups working on standards for student information. And we're also part of this group. But there are not time to go into each one of these here, but these are very important groups to be involved in and work to be involved in. Yes, the most important thing I wanted to tell you about today is, of course, the Diploma Portal Diploma Registry. So I want to demonstrate this service, and hopefully this is close to or support your ideas in DIN. So the background for the Diploma Portal is, of course, that higher education institutions are administering and producing transcripts of records and diplomas. And this was done on paper and requires time and money, both from the student side and from the organization side. And yeah, lots of paper, and the institutions and employers used a lot of time and resources for assessing the validity of documents they receive. The wish for a diploma registry actually came from the employer side. So the Norwegian employer organization, NHO, asked our government to fix this problem with all the papers. Because for the higher education institutions, this was not a very big problem. You don't use that much time to produce these documents. But for the users of these documents and for the receivers of these documents, this was really a hassle. And the goal is, of course, to enable the receivers of these documents to digitalize their processes. And of course, the owner of the documents, which are the citizens themselves, should be able to handle this information digitally. And we, of course, had problems with counterfeits on transcripts of records and diplomas.
How do you have any examples on how the counterfeiting happen? Is it because it's a piece of paper and it's easy to create the
Yeah.
watermarks and stuff?
Yes, it was papers, and we saw a lot of examples of this. Some was very good and some was very bad, of course. And there was actually quite a lot of these examples. But it was because of the very easy on paper to do this. So the goal for setting up this service was validity and security, simplify the processes, reduce use of paper, or remove paper use. So we were given the task to build this in 2015, and the first version was put into production in January 2017. And this was done together in cooperation with the Erasmus Plus project, AMREX. So this is built on international architecture and formats. And this is especially used in the Nordic countries and Poland, Netherlands, Germany. Yes, key facts about this service. It's a virtual registry, results as structural data, and digital signed transcripts, and digital signed diplomas. So these are actually structural data that we exchange, not documents as such. And that is, of course, to enable the receivers of this data to use this data directly in their processes. All actions are initiated by the users themselves. We call it the owner of the data, which is the student or former students. No results or qualifications are stored permanently in this registry, but ID numbers are. So when you log into this service, the service knows where it should collect data. And there is one place to get data about results from education, and this is this Diploma Portal. You get all your data there. And you can use the National ID Portal to log in, or FAID, Federal Identity for Education. Information can be shared in Norwegian, English, or Northern Sami. So all higher education institutions in Norway are connected today. Results are availability is back from the 80s or earlier, but that varies. University of Oslo have a complete record for all their students back from 1958 until today. So
I just had a quick question on last slide, and you said something about data structure. Is this like a European structured data structure, or is it?
It's a structure called ELMO, which is a European format. It's built on a SEN standard models.
Thank you.
But we have cooperation with the Europass, so maybe in the future we get one format. Still European. The Europass is built on verifiable credentials from V2C. So yes,
Cool.
you can. So institutions can also include the signed diplomas and diploma supplements as PDFs that will be in addition to structured data. And if you have studies from abroad and have included that in your qualification, that will also be part of this flow of data. So we also plan to include results from lower levels. And now we have the law that enables us to get data also from upper secondary school and from NOKUT. That is about recognition of foreign studies. So that will also be added in the future to this registry. target group, students and employees in higher education, everyone with higher education, job applicants, employers. The latest thing is that immigrants with results from language tests also can share their data using this service. Yes, these are the logins last 5 years. So it doubles the first years. Not very much raised last year, but it's a significant part of the Norwegian population you have been using this. And this are the actual number of sharings. So some over 250,000 sharings into 2021. So. And yeah, there are two ways of sharing data using the diploma registry. One is via MREX, which is a network. So you start your like said, you apply for a job, and then you, as part of that process, want to deliver data from education. You get redirected to the diploma registry and choose what data you want to share with this employer and get back into the process of the job application. So when you apply for job, the data from your education is part of this application. So 60,000 of these sharings was via that kind of process. The rest is sharing links. So you can share data, share a link with an employer, and they can go into the diploma registry via this link and look at your data. That, of course, is not the best way of sharing, but using MREX, you need to do some local implementation in your recruitment systems, etc., to be part of this. So vitnemålsportalen.no is a service. So I try to be able to stop sharing and start a new sharing. Just a moment. Yes, so this is the login page for the Diploma registry, the Diploma Portal. It's a test site, so I will use a test using user in Fade. Logging in using Fade. So when I log in here, before I log in, there are no. Do you see the presentation or? Yes.
We see it.
Yes. So there are no data about you before you log in. But here you see that there are results from two different institutions, Lovisenberg, the Colonial University College, and University of Southeastern Norway. So I can click to view these results. So now they're collecting data from the actual source. So it works pretty fast to get access to your data. These are the data for these test persons that can be shared with whoever you want to share it with. So I choose to share all this data. Go to the next page. Now I have to confirm my selection just to be sure that I have chosen the right data. And here I can, this is the way of sharing via links. So I can now share it with myself and how long I want this sharing to happen, maybe 2 weeks, and the language I want to share my data. And I share it in English. And next. And now the process has finished. Now the documentation will go to electronic signing, and then an email will be sent. and they can use this link to get access to this data. Using MREX is almost the same process, but the data is actually going back into the, let's say, the recruitment systems or whatever systems you come from. So I go back into my presentation. Just takes a while. If you have any questions, please ask.
Are you touching upon how this Vitnemåls Portal will be affected by IDAS 2 and these things? Yeah.
Yes.
Perfect. Then I don't have any questions.
If I find that was wrong, sorry. There we are. Yes. So that was Diploma Registry. Yeah, so we plan to include new sources, a complete record from education, all levels, and we now got the law to do that. Other types of credentials from education, like course certificates, etc., and recognition from NOCUT. And we have also discussed like professional licenses, driver licenses, and similar. And we have also done pilots on that, but haven't been able to put that kind of services into production yet. So there is, of course, this new digital wallet, identity wallet. The Digital Europe program, or digital or DEP, is a new program for digitalization of Europe. So it's a new big EU funding program. So bringing digital technology into to citizens, businesses, public administration. A lot of this funding is related to artificial intelligence, high performance computing, and that is actually to compete with countries like US and China. So a lot of funding is going into that, but they're also following up the old program, CEF, with the initiatives there. And now there is a new call from Digital on European Digital Identity Framework. And this call is about EBSI services. So that is European Blockchain Services. Deploy electronic ID, and one call on security law enforcement, AI-based pilots. But the second one here, Sikt, together with DIGDIR, participate in a Spanish consortia called Digital Credentials for Europe. It's about 10 to 12 countries part of this consortia. And our goal here is to connect this to the diploma registry. So that is our use case in this. So we will, in this consortium, be an executor of this part of the call. This call, there are 4 different use cases. Diploma is one of them, and there only one project win each use case. So if this will be a reality, I don't know. DIGDIR is also part of another consortia to build the Norwegian infrastructure for this digital wallet. And we will use that infrastructure from the diploma registry. And this is something we will do anyway. So once DIGDIR gets this infrastructure up and running, we will start working on this, and hopefully this will be done as part of this project. And what we plan to do is actually from the Diploma Portal add a third way of sharing your data, and that is to store your data in this wallet. And that will, from day one, covers 100% of higher education. But we also want to read data from the wallet and put it into the existing infrastructure. So like employers and a number of recruitment systems in Norway have implemented the connection to the diploma registry, and we want them also to or enable them to use this wallet via the same service. So that is our use case in this. So yes, that was all I had. We have some more minutes for questions, or maybe I should stop sharing.
It's really interesting to see the journey that you guys have been through, and kind of what is your feeling now that you kind of got ADAS and then you get this other complicated wallet infrastructure? What's your thoughts on that?
I see today's AI does obviously doesn't work. We have really tried to implement it, and of course to implement, even the Norwegian node is not up and running today, so you can't use your Norwegian identity in another country today, and it has taken a lot of time to get this up and running. We have a goal of 50% student mobility, and what we struggle with is identity, and we really need this to work. So we really have hopes for this wallet. The future will show if this infrastructure will work, and how complex it will be to use it for the citizens.
Yeah, I think that the complexity on usage for citizens might be easy, but it depends on how, because every system needs to do another implementation, right?
Yeah, but what we will do in Norway is actually to add this wallet to the existing ID portal. So we are using the ID portal via Fade today. So when we implement Fade in our systems, we are using OpenID Connect, and then Fade take the responsibility of connecting to the ID portal, and they also do EIDAS EID via the ID portal, and they will also add the wallet. So we don't need to change our systems to enable logging via the wallet, but we need to understand the use of the identity, and we are handling it today via the existing EIDAS EID. So the question here is, of course, how this is connected to a Norwegian identity. Because when you are a student from abroad, we want to give service to these students also when they have left the country. They should be able to connect to their data. And how could we connect their foreign identity to the Norwegian identity? And then we need the people registry to be part of this infrastructure. But to implement the wallet identity in Norway for the existing systems should be fairly easy, actually. You are muted.
In terms of wallets, the wallet is primarily just a carrier, right? And it has to hold some type of credential it can present to verify. So I do believe that if systems around the world is able to have this wallet or basically connect with this wallet. It just comes down to what are the credentials we want to accept. So as you guys can agree on in one of these networks, say, hey, this is the education credential. If someone presents that to us, we will be able to send them their data. So I think that there's a positive direction for this thing, for this wallet, and that is also why it didn't exist, because we believe that there has to be some movement. But I'm very glad to hear that you guys are supporting the EU efforts.
Yeah, and also very positive about this initiative. So, but yeah, the regulation will. But if you look,
Live streaming is on.
If you look into the future, this seldom happens very quickly. So.
Yeah. Being from a product company myself, I see, we were supposed to be done in October. We're not yet done. So, and we're a small startup. So I do believe that this big structure change might take some time, but I wish to be optimistic.
Mm.
Yeah. Marius?
Yeah, so I have a question on the last, it's a side question first. On this last slide, you had security, law enforcement, and AI topic. How much of that was related to identity, and how much is it like generic EU digitization effort?
Well, I have to come back to that, or I can share with you the call. I haven't looked into that actually. So.
Okay, thank you. So my question was, you mentioned that some of the standards that you're using are based on the VC and the W3C work. So that would allow kind of issuance of let's say diploma to the person themselves, such that they don't need to go through the qualification portal to present it to an employee, for example. So how much of that is actually already happening, and how much of that might be kind of happening in the future? Like, because what I'm trying to understand, if in the traditional models, you have to go and do the handshake with the person or the institution who actually granted the credentials, such that you can kind of validate that the credential is correct. With the new models with W3C and so on, that is, the dynamics is slightly changed such that you can do offline validations based on the signatures, right? So where are we in this kind of transition?
Yeah, we haven't, we don't know yet, of course, but I believe that the new wallet will be based for the diplomas will be based on actually a new model called ELM, European Learner Model, which is based on V2C verifiable credentials. And that is a signed document. And this is also connected to a verifiable verification process of the organizations that have issued this document. So how can you trust the issuers? Is also an infrastructure we are working on, not only the diploma itself. So.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so there is hope.
There is hope, yes. So.
Because your question, Marius, piggybacks on my initial question in terms of if we are to embrace verifiable credentials, as you say, that is one of the standards you're looking at, there has to be, or to me, there has to be a change in the recruitment portals in the way that they consume data, that they consume it from the wallet instead of Diploma Portal. But if the recruitment portals already depend on having bank ID or something in the ID portal to kind of create a connection, which then just consumes data from Diploma Portal because they have the rights and authorization to do so, I don't think that that will actually become a big problem, because they would just add the wallet there instead and consume it from the wallet service rather than Vittnemålsportal service. So it might actually not be as bad as I think.
No, so we may come to a situation that Vittnemålsportalen is only a place where you get access to your data and put it into your wallet. So,
yeah.
And if you use your wallet, there's still a way to get access to this data, so for lifetime. So.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that the second aspect is that sort of the trust layer of who is the issuer. So currently the portal guarantees that all the credentials are from the recognized institutions, and the trust is sort of there, right? So we know that all the universities and so on who are kind of contributing the data have been vetted already. And if we move to this new model where I kind of hold my credentials in my wallet and they are signed by various institutions, then we have to have this trusted entity who validates that those signatures are actually the ones from the institutions which we recognize. And that changes the responsibility. Like I don't think we can get away without systems like the portal, because you need this sort of rooting of the trust somewhere.
And I guess also we want non-formal education, open this wallet for non-formal education. And then the organizations getting this data should understand what the data is formal recognized from formal recognized education and what is not. So, and we have Norwegian colleges that are providing both accredited education and non-accredited education at the same time, and the organization getting this data should understand that from a trusted source.
Yeah.
And,
so we're a little bit over. I got a couple more questions if you have time. And if anyone else wants to stay on and continue this conversation, you are more than welcome to. If not, you're also welcome to leave if you have other things to go to. But so thanks for everyone's participation. And I got a couple of more questions I would like to just go through. But so what... Are you guys worried that Vittnemålsportalen would just be like a management site, or will this affect the way you guys work, or do you hope that the goal for you guys is just be able to share more productive data?
Well, our goal is, as I mentioned in the start, Sikt's goal is to open the data. If you talk about personal data here, is of course to open it for the citizens of Norway, and they should be able to use it in whatever way they want to use it. And if Vittnemålsportalen is not a way of doing this, it should not be a problem.
Yeah.
So we try to understand the lifetime of this kind of documentation, because when you have your paper diploma, you have an idea on how to use that in 60 years. If you get your digital diploma, which is a stream of data, how will this work in 60 years?
Yeah.
Because it has to work in 60 years. So that is what we need to try to understand. How should we work now to make this work also in the future? Because if you get your diploma from upper secondary school when you are 18 years old, it should work when you into your dying time. So.
Yeah.
And also we need to have accreditation services that ensure that the issuer of this diploma from upper secondary school existed 40 years ago and was allowed to give this kind of education.
Mhm.
So that is the environment we are trying to set up.
It's an interesting.
And I'm sure that diploma registry is not part of this in 60 years. But the data will still be there in a form.
That's cool. I have this issue now. Like, I need to have my data notarized for the Ugandan government, like my actual education data. They will not accept a link. So because I tried saying that, well, this is trustworthy data which you're looking at, but they're not accepting it. How does one go about that case?
I guess we have to be very patient working on this. Now we need to work internationally on these issues, like a Groningen Declaration Network. Based on that, a number of the trusted sources for, like say, results from education have been identified and shared in this network.
Yeah.
And everybody working in this area can get access to this and understand how these are linked together. But of course, it's up to Uganda what they want to.
I think it's just
Trust
that they struggle with digital space. So it's just to be able to, they want it in one format they understand. That's paper and signature. But it's, I don't know, not notarized, meaning that there's actually a third party approving that piece of paper.
Well, the first reaction we got to the diploma registry, we actually from abroad, was from the University of Aarhus.
Yeah.
And they didn't want to trust this. So we need to we need to talk to them. So we had to talk to the ministry in Copenhagen that they should inform their organization about this. And now they trust it.
Yeah. Interesting. I wonder how long it will take until we get this wallet trusted. Like if we get actually, now I can scan your QR code and you trust the data and send it to you. It's gonna be interesting.
Well, if there is a will, there is it kind of quick. Like with COVID QR codes, it was, took 2 years and we have it. It's working, right?
Well, working is one thing. If it's user-friendly and trustworthy in the long sense, it's not a question. I heard so many stories about people making their own QR codes with mumbo jumbo numbers behind the QR code, and they pass because nobody scans it or nobody cares to read the actual results. So it's
that's true.
But it's interesting. I'm not going to keep you any longer, Guide, if there's not any other questions from the group. So I'll give you guys 5 seconds to write.
Maybe one quick question. So what is the status of standardizing the formats? Like you mentioned that some of the data formats has been already standardized and you're kind of happily using them. But for example, if you were to include driving license, the actual attributes and the format, like, who should do that? Like how it will happen? It's not the educational network, or is it? Like, and how the various standardization bodies like IEEE or ISO and W3C, how they don't compete? Like, will we not end up with like some competing data formats standards?
Well, we have competing data formats today globally, and of course, when we start, when we don't communicate on this or cooperate on this, there will be a lot of standards. But in Europe, today there are 2 different standards, and we are now cooperating to get one standard in the area of education, and that will be, I believe it will be a V2C verifiable credential-based standard. And this is what Europass is now setting up, and they are now trying to provide all the data elements we need in the MREX network, like the diploma registry. And I also believe that this is the format we will use when we are piloting this wallet. And they also have set up a way of testing or verifying accreditation of the studies and the institutions that have provided this data. So, yeah.
Cool.
And I mentioned there is this IEEE work going on. They have, and V3C is also part of that work. So they try to set up cooperation to how should this look like in the future. So, but we have been doing this for 20 years and it's still a bit immature because the implementation of these standards are fairly new, and so it's at that time we understand what is really going on and what is the problems with having a lot of standards. But Marius, are you working with verifiable credentials or?
Yep, we're working with verifiable credentials and those new kind of decentralized technologies related to identity management and so on. And we collaborating with Snorre for some of the projects as well. Yeah.
So maybe we call you one day when we have got got this EU project.
Sounds good. Yeah.
Perfect.
Well, perfect. Thanks for your time. And if there's no further questions, I just want to say thanks for participating to everyone, and thanks for coming, Geir. It was an informative session, and the recording will be online if you guys want to share this with anyone. So.
Yeah. Nice
Perfect.
talking to you.
You too.
Thank
Have
you
a
very
good
much.
day, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.